There we are. Hey, gang, how we
Hi.
doing today? Cole, how are you,
Swell.
sir?
Swell,
Well,
swell. Double swell.
welcome to November 2nd, 2020. Yes, that's right. We're just less than a month away from 2021. Who would have thought it? Here we
Yeah.
are, Theme Park History 101. My name is Jeremiah. I am the host. And over there is Cole. He's my sidekick. We
Yeah,
agreed
I
on
am.
that. I'm just not demoting him or anything. Um, And Theme Park History 101 goes deep into theme park history, pretty much what the name of it is. I threw in the 101 to kind of represent two things. College courses were 101 for the basic. And in Disney terms, 101 means things break down. And as with most of the shows here on Laughing Place, we break down and we go off the track sometimes. Uh, Before we dive too deep, I would like to invite you all to like, subscribe, ring our bell. If you're on Facebook, like us, share with your friends everything that's fun that's going on. If you're on YouTube, please ring the bell so you get notifications every time we go live, which may be just about every 5 minutes or so.
Pretty
Uh,
much.
Please subscribe to us. We did just reach a huge milestone. We're just over 100,000 viewers, which for somebody who
Subscribers.
came on, subscribers, yes, viewers,
Yeah, that's
we've gotten, I looked at our viewer number. I think for total over everything, we've got quite a few million viewers or views. So that's great.
I mean the Raptor video alone has like 6 million, so and are
If
they
you've
real?
ever,
I still don't know.
I know, if you've not seen it, please look for the Baby Raptor video on our YouTube channel. It will blow your mind, and the question will proceed, are they real or not? So today we are starting off. This was actually one of Cole's ideas. Not that I have any problem with it because I actually did enjoy visiting this location. But Cole is the history man, so he can definitely dive deep into Disney Quest.
There it is.
Cole, go for it. You start off.
Okay. Well, to start out, I think we really have to start with just the idea of making Disney more accessible to multiple people. Like that's something that hasn't really been possible a lot of times over the years. Um, just because, there's California, there's Florida, and then there's the international park. So unless you kind of live on the East Coast or on the West Coast, you don't have that many options. You got to really commit to getting to one of them. So Disney was like, you know what? This is a good idea. People like our Disney stores. Maybe we should go a little bit bigger. So they came up with this idea, Club Disney, which I never went to. I don't know if you went to one.
Nope, I never made it to one, but I know
I
people who helped open it that loved it.
Yeah. So they were coming up with this Club Disney, which from my understanding was it wasn't quite a nightclub. It was a little more than that. It was also like a day club for kids and stuff, but it kind of brought the Disney magic to life, basically, was what happened, which was a cool idea. Like, I liked it.
Yeah, but then if you put it in a mall next to a Disney store, you kind of limit your time because malls are occupied. When those were around in the mid 90s, weekends malls would be busy, but during the day, everybody was 9 to 5 still. There wasn't these amazing computers that we use now. So there wouldn't be a lot of traffic in the malls during those days. And I know that I've heard that that was one of the direct things that led to that project not being a success was the weekdays. It would be a babysitting place for parents that were just in the mall for a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, but they still looked at it at the beginning at least and thought it was enough of a win because Michael Eisner saw wins wherever they came. He's like, got that one, got that one, and then he was like, let's roll it up. So there was a group, Disney Regional Entertainment, I think was it. What was the name? And so then they said, all right, let's go a little bigger. Let's make a Disney Quest, which was, yes, I don't forget it because I don't know what it is.
Mickey's Kitchen, I will take a quick trip into it,
Yes.
was kind of like and Doobie, I'm sure, will correct us. He may even jump on and correct us. Was kind of a connection to the Disney stores where it was almost the ability to have, I don't want to say like a 50s type cafe next to it, but it would be connected and it would be a Mickey's Kitchen where it'd be Disney run, have the Disney foods. There weren't characters, but it was definitely themed like that.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I like that.
Mhm.
I wish that I could have experienced one. Maybe I did when I was like -1, or like I was probably like 1 years old and my parents were like, here we go.
I want to say the Mickey's Kitchens only existed maybe in a handful, if that, of malls. I know that the first one, as with almost everything, was in Anaheim, right down the street from Disneyland.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
that, again, closed pretty quickly.
Hmm. Yeah. So they jumped off this idea and thought, what if we could make like a virtual theme park? Because VR was starting to become more of a big thing at that time. Though they talk a lot about how VR is connected with Disney Quest, but a lot of it is a little more augmented reality. Oh, so yeah, Mickey's Kitchen. I was, according to Doobie's comment of 1990 to 1992, I was -6 to -4. So I don't think I experienced that. But anyway, yeah, so they wanted to kind of jump on this virtual reality idea, though it wasn't as virtual reality. Their interpretation of virtual reality, I think, is different than how we think of virtual reality now. Like VR, we think really getting immersed within the world, whereas there it was really kind of, here's some screens. Look at our screens, aren't they cool? Like,
Yeah. I mean, but you have to think back in that time, virtual reality, we're thinking of like Max Headroom,
mhm.
Lawnmower Man, those type of movies where the computer, and it's funny, we're talking about this, and I just finished Ready Player Two, which
I
kind
did
of
too.
falls into this, where it's very much the virtual world. Even what we think today, we still don't know what it's going to end up being, but the concept was a great idea.
Hmm. Yes, I agree. So yeah, they wanted to jump off that concept and they decided to make their first one in what was then Downtown Disney, but is now Disney Springs with Disney Quest, which I forget the date. Do you have the date it opened on you? If not, I got it. There you
It
go.
was June
19th.
1998.
Yeah,
19th.
June 19th, 1998.
Yeah, and before we dive too deep into it, well, actually, before we dive into the Disney Quest part,
Mm-hmm.
do you know where the first aspect of Disney Quest came into being? He's thinking. I can see the wheels turning.
I mean, there's a lot of different aspects within Disney Quest. So I don't know. I'm gonna go with
Well,
I don't know.
you actually will go, oh, I remember this as soon as I mention it. Um, in Innoventions, when Innoventions opened in Epcot, they had the Imagineering Lab where they
Yeah.
brought in the first test of the Aladdin's Flying Carpet virtual reality.
Hmm.
And for those of us, I'm sure Doobie, well, I'm not sure if Doobie was around at that time. Yep, Geo knew. They had the preview of it, but it when it was Innoventions, they would select one child per presentation. They could come up and do it, and you'd see it on the big
Mm.
screen.
Okay.
And then when Starcade in Disneyland got this amazing open space, and I stood there for, I know this won't surprise many viewers that know me. I stood there for about 3 hours while they
Oh my
installed.
goodness.
I think they installed 6 of them. They had 2 on each side, and it was kind of two, two, and two. And it was $5 for, I think, 5 to 10 minutes. So you could play the game, but it was only just part of the game. Like, did you ever get a chance to play the Aladdin Magic Carpets at Disney Quest?
I did it at Disney Quest when I went. Yeah, I was probably like 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it was, if you played in the early days, and speaking of early days, this was actually October of '98. That's me. I think I still have that shirt, playing it. And at that time, sorry to jump in a little bit deep, Cole, but
No, you're good.
I waited 3.5 hours to play the game in
Oh my.
Disneyland at Starcade. And then when Disney Quest opened in '98, I was lucky enough to come out in '98 or in October of '98, and that was my first visit there. And even then, it wasn't that busy, but I had a chance to play all the games. And if you look to my left, there's this little swiper, which
Mm-hmm.
was you would have the credits on the card. It wasn't the buy one entrance, get all the games for free, as much like Disneyland when it first opened, where you had to have certain credits and you could re-up and buy more credits to play games.
Mm-hmm.
But I will
Which
get
is
rid of
kind
that.
of nuts.
Yeah.
Like, you're already doing a partial Disney experience, and then you still have to pay for things, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah. And you think about that, video games in '98 were still big. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we moved into the home consoles, but as we said, there weren't massive computers everywhere where everybody is
Yeah.
playing Fortnite or Minecraft
Mm-hmm.
nonstop, aka Ready Player One, Ready Player Two. Uh, so they saw that as the money making opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But back to you in the history of it all.
Well, yeah. So really, I was actually going to kind of just segue us into talking next about what was actually in there. You know,
Hmm.
like what did each floor look like? How did it all work? And I was going to kind of turn it over to you for that because I know you have some nice pictures that we can kind of walk through.
Well, one of the nice things, well, I shouldn't say one of the nice things. One of the sad things about towards the end of Disney Quest that closed in 2017 was it was available to guests that had the highest pass opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe went in there 3 or 4 times, and kind of what it turned into was really when it rained, that's when the capacity would hit.
Yeah.
During the normal day, you could walk in there and you actually had to fight some of the games to wait for enough people to play. But here's what we're looking at. Let's start at the first floor, which is where you entered. They had the rotunda, which you came in through, and then you entered the elevators. And do
Mm-hmm.
you recall the elevators, Cole?
Yeah, they were kind of like with the genie. He was
Yes.
there. Yes.
Uh, it was a full story. It was immersing you into the attraction. So you'd get
Mm-hmm.
in, and the genie would grant your wish and whisk you up to the third floor, which we'll get onto in a little bit. But
How did he
you
know that
entered
was my wish to go exactly to the third floor?
because you paid however much the ticket was at the time to get in. Um, but we'll go. Okay, you walked into the
Mm-hmm.
rotunda. You got into one of the two elevators, which I can remember towards the end they'd remove the genie, and I'd heard stories that they actually were looking to upgrade it to a new experience. But
Mm-hmm.
the Disney company, 2015, they announced that they were going to close Disney Quest at some point for the future expansion. I believe at that time it was still the Disney Wharf area
Yeah.
before it became downtown or Disney Springs. But you would hop in there, you'd go up to the third floor. And let's bring up the map for the third floor.
The pressure, the anticipation is just
I know.
it's growing so much.
Well, again, one of the easy things about the showing and not showing of these is the amazing interface with StreamYard is not the easiest at times. Okay,
Well, they want
so
you to
there's
feel good about it when you
yes,
finally accomplish it.
they want you to like, okay, good, this person figure out how to share screens like this.
Boom.
So as it says, you start here, and from here you could go down the stairs up the stairs to level 4 or 5, down the stairs to level 2 or 1, and
Hmm.
then there were all these other fun things to play.
Yeah.
This is again towards the end of the run, so some of these you can talk about some of the attractions that may have
Hmm.
existed in those spots before. But the Buzz Lightyear Astro Blaster, which was the first, no, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin here was the
Yeah, that
first
was
one.
first. Yeah.
And then Buzz Lightyear Astro Blaster, and then Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters.
Hmm.
But what do you remember about Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blaster?
Oh, I just remember spinning all the time because I was not very good at that game, and
Yeah,
I just kept getting shot at.
it was definitely an interesting game. I mean, one of the things that we kind of skimmed over was this building inside was amazing. It had
Hmm.
giant statues. It had themes for everything. They even had their own little mascot, which is the one-eyed.
Yeah.
Um, I can't remember his name, but they sold plushes at one point of this
Yes.
creature. It was everything you ever wanted, and then sadly, it kind of deteriorated. But Buzz Lightyear Astro Blaster to me would always be the if you didn't have a second player, you couldn't do it. And then
Yeah.
they'd put you with single players towards the end. And it's okay, great. You drive and then you pick up the balls and then you put it in the cannon and you launch it.
Yeah.
That simple task was next to impossible.
It's so hard.
the you had to roll over the balls, they would capture in the thing, you'd have to spin the holder, pull the ball out, and then put it in the cannon, push the cannon in, and then fire the cannon, and the cannon would never fire anything other than a
Yep.
so yeah, that attraction to me was always a challenge.
If you
um
finally hit someone, you were just filled with so much joy. You're like, did you see that? I
yes,
actually did it. I actually hit someone.
I know. And it was fun because well, towards the end, the cast members knew that if they were at Disney Quest, it wasn't the main attraction.
Yeah.
I knew a cast member that was there, and she would tell me how there'd be days where they'd have maybe 10 people come through the entire thing. But if it was a rainy day, that was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And you hear Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters was L, and it was this massive side of the room.
Yeah.
They then they had also put the classic games in there, which
Hmm.
they call out by classic games. Uh, the I, which was the race zone, was
Hmm.
really just a bunch of the different racing games. It was never
Yep.
anything. If you enjoyed the motorcycle racing games or the car racing games, it was a great place to be. And it was unlimited use at that
Hmm.
time towards the end. So you could sit there and play forever. But
Yeah.
again, that was a definite challenge.
Yeah.
Um,
I think when I went, it was before it was unlimited. And so I
mhm.
never really played any of the arcade games because I was like, I do not want to pay for these games when I've already like paid to get in here and I just want to do all these other things. I want to ride all the other attractions that there were.
Yeah, and that was definitely one of the things that I always had a problem with was you had to have credits to play video games that one most people already had in their home because they were on different uh, portable systems, and
Hmm.
two, most of the time, sadly, the video games didn't work. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So G, the Underground Arcade, which I don't really remember the last few times I was there, but I want to say that that was closed off. I can remember the first couple
Yeah.
of times I went, it was a great theme, and you'd walk around and there would be fun arcade games in there.
Hmm.
But again, towards the end, they were just sticking any game that they could get for the cheap in there, sadly.
Yeah.
Um, for me, well, J, which is the venture port, was the entrance area.
It's your stairs.
Yeah. H is probably the highlight for me of my time visiting Disney Quest, and that was the Mighty
I
Ducks.
liked those. I like that. These were
it
really
was
fun.
again, it was lots of fun. Very, very easy to tire yourself out on. For anybody that hadn't been there, you would stand on it and you would be the bumpers. And wasn't that easy. But it was definitely an entertaining game to sit and to watch the people trying to do it, but it never had a lot of people playing it. If you were lucky, you'd have 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yes, it was like pinball. That's exactly. But you were the bumpers, and it wasn't the easiest.
See, when I did it, I was still like 14, so I had time. I had energy.
Rebecca. Yeah, and you had to have energy for it, because if not, you halfway through the game, you just kind of stood there and just, okay, I can't do this anymore.
You gave up. It was over.
Oh yeah, and that was one of the most frustrating things, was playing with everybody else, and the ball would be heading towards them and they'd be like, and they just kind of rock.
Yeah. Oh.
Here you could see down here were the ducks that you were on, the pads, and then up here were the different bumpers that you were. And it also wasn't the clearest game to play, because
No.
they didn't really give you a lot of how to do it. They just kind of went, okay, do it. Yes.
Also, they didn't even care about the sign. Look it. No eye. No, like they just gave up.
Well, my favorite is off to the side where it has the scores. Those were still old digital, not LCD.
Yeah.
They were just like the bad, like, here's the score, and you could kind of figure out what it was.
Yeah.
But it was still probably one of the best games that they had.
Yeah, they're so, like, try your hardest, but you might not succeed.
So while we are up on level 3, let's head down to level 2. You would, through the venture port, you would go down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, S was Cyberspace Mountain, which we'll get into that in detail in just a little bit.
Yeah.
The Aladdin Magic Carpet, which we touched upon, but for me, that was the draw. I can remember seeing that on the Disney Channel and in the Interventions videos of how cool is that? I mean, heck, I waited 3 hours to play it at Starcade at Disneyland, so it was definitely my number one thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was also the closest to actual virtual reality as well. Like, it was, the other ones you kind of got bits and pieces, but that was the most like what you think of with virtual reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you put on the headset and then you go all out.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had a picture of me with the headset. I'm glad that I didn't find that. But yeah, that I always felt was one of the biggest draws of that, and Cyberspace Mountain. But while we're kind of in the venture port area, the Living Easel was, hey, look, here's how do you draw. The Animation Academy, which really did start it all for the animation academies throughout the world. I mean, almost every park has had a version of it that would teach you how to draw the animated characters. And one of the unique things I remember about that is you could print off your art because you would draw it on the digital originally.
Yeah. Reagan brings up a very good point about Aladdin.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to pull that comment up, you can see that Aladdin is not spelled correctly on the map.
Yeah.
They spelled it Alladin.
Well, don't tell them that.
How little money was going into this?
And again, just wait. This map, again, was 2015, after they had announced it's going to close 2 years before. And really, the only things that had been added since then was an attraction or a few arcade games that we'll talk about
Yeah.
that was the saving or the hopeful saving grace of it. Um, so okay, Animation Academy, the uh, N was Radio Disney Song Maker.
I'm grabbing a second.
Nothing but that timely create your own custom CDs. I can remember that opened, I believe that opened in 2000, along with the Pirates attraction, because at that time I was big into pin trading, and for media, they had put in different different pins that were going. So the media would get the pins for these different attractions, and then they would often trade them because they didn't understand pin trading with cast. So I still have a Song Maker CD pin somewhere in my collection along with the Pirates one. But this was, just like you would find in any mall. You could pay a couple of dollars, you'd go and record it, they'd make your own CD.
Also,
for me,
I wanted to say one more thing about Animation Academy. It's kind of a 30-minute class, it says. None of the other ones are 30 minutes. They must have really been trying to keep you in there as long as they could. They knew everyone was trying to get out.
Yeah, for that 30 minutes was, hey, this is great. And I can remember walking up and the last class had just gone, and they're like, okay, next class, 30 minutes. I was like, wait, at Disney MGM, I can do it every 10 minutes. Why do I have to wait that long? Yeah. Oh, let me pull down that. Sorry, I'm blocking things. So let's see. My favorite has to be Q, not the character from Star Trek, but the Sid's Create a Toy. And did you ever get a chance to do that?
Fun.
Yes.
I did not actually. I don't think I was about 14 by then. Like, I really think I only went 2010 and 2012, so I wasn't really at a point where I was too old to get a toy because I was gonna play with a toy, and then too young to get a toy as a memorabilia. I was right in that sweet age where it was like, I don't want any toy for any reason.
Yeah. When I first went in 98, the Sid's Create a Toy seemed like one of the coolest things because, Toy Story wasn't too far in the past. And what you would do, you would walk up to the screen and you would take different pieces of toys. You'd have a Barbie doll or a duck head or something and create your own toy, just like Sid did in his backyard.
Yeah.
But, you weren't torturing the toys. It's not going to that whole meta thing. But it was lots of fun. But you had to purchase the toy, and I think it was like $14.99 at the point. I don't know if I still have it, but one of the last times I went, I actually did the Sid's Create a Toy.
Yeah.
And I walk up, and they this is exactly what it was. You were Frankensteining a toy. But I walked up and I created a toy. Then I walked over to buy it, and they said, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, we don't have all these pieces," because they were trying to get rid of everything and not restock. And I go, "Oh, okay." But they go, "Hang on, if you just want to buy one, we can get you something." I'm like, "Sure." So I bought the toy, and they came over with the white box that was like this big, and just filled with every single piece that they had left.
Because my gosh.
It was a fire sale to get rid of their stuff. They just dumped everything in there, and I had it for years. I think it still could be in my storage somewhere. But it was such a fun thing to create your own toy, and you would take the pieces on the screen, you'd drag them over, and you'd put them all together. And when you'd bring it to life, it would quack and it would move and do other things on the screen. And then you could do it. You could purchase it, and they would give you a printout and whatever you named it on your sheet. So they really went in deep to try to get
that's really cool.
Yeah. Again, things that I need to find somewhere in my storage, which
Yeah.
at this, even though we've been talking about this subject for like a week, I don't think I probably could have found it at that point. Uh, and that brings us to really the highlight of Disney Quest, the
Hmm.
Cyberspace Mountain.
Yeah.
And let's design and ride the roller coaster of your dreams or nightmares. And you can't really see the height restriction for it, but I know Rebecca called it out.
Pretty tall.
51 inches.
Woo.
51 inches. The very random, um,
Yeah, that is
but
random.
but it definitely was a unique attraction because I always make fun of some of the attractions at Universal, mostly Jimmy Fallon, as it's the technology of the 90s where you could go to the mall, you could choose what you wanted, and you would sit in there and you'd kind of rock back and forth.
Yeah.
And Cyberspace Mountain was very much the same, but it also gave you the opportunity to do loops.
Yes, it did. I remember doing like creating my coaster, and I added a loop pretty much every 3 seconds.
Hmm.
I don't know how I survived it because I kept doing loops.
Yeah, and that Bill Nye was the host of it, and that was one of those. At
Hmm.
that time, I think Bill Nye was at Disney Quest, Epcot,
Hmm.
Disney's Animal Kingdom. I don't think he had anything at Hollywood Studios um,
Magic
or
Kingdom.
Magic Kingdom, but he was definitely everywhere.
He should have just made a brief appearance in The Timekeeper, just like shown up.
Yeah, yeah, and Geo, they did have very similar type attractions at Luxor, and again, this became the new technology in 1998. It was the hot thing, but then they started changing it to make it more accessible throughout the world. And really,
Hmm.
I wish that I had the recording because at one point I did a recording of the design, and it has you like, okay, so you can put this here, here, and it
Yeah.
was green, yellow, or red levels. And if it was green, it would be fine for everybody. Yellow, a little bit iffy. And then the red was just, there we go.
This.
Yeah. Yeah, you would be upside down for the entire thing. So it was definitely the attraction that most people rush to.
Hmm.
And again, this was opened in 1998, and this is a story that I heard from somebody that did work there. Originally, Cyberspace Mountain was designed to be updated throughout the years, but right after it opened, they fired the design team that did it, and there was never a change to it, which showed in the technology of the attraction itself.
Classic. Classic
And
move.
if you ever did need to remember,
Oh
you could
man.
purchase your own CD or VHS.
VHS?
And again, this was on the wall in 2015.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could still buy a VHS in 2015. I wonder if they carried them because they probably had just like 10,000
Yeah.
VHS tapes left over that they were like, oh my god, someone buys it in a Casper goes back, someone's buying a VHS.
Somebody's doing it. What's going on?
Exactly.
And I kind of felt like that. I when I talked to the cast members the last few times I went, it was definitely an entertaining thing to hear how many people would come through or who would actually purchase it. And they were kind
Yeah.
of little free with their information. They'd often say that, I was one of the first people to buy the Sid's Create Toy in a month.
That's so sad.
Yeah. um, yes, the CD would have been a collector's item at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we finished up with level 2. Now let's head down to what was probably one of the coolest levels, level 1.
Hmm. Adventure. The
Yes, and
Adventure
that
Zone.
Yeah, I forget that each of the levels had their own theme and name. Um, the Adventure Zone, the Create Zone was level 2, and then the upper were the comics and
Hmm.
uh,
I'm trying to remember.
yeah. So level 1, which actually had probably the most changes over the years, um, the virtual Jungle Cruise, which again was you got to work out if you were doing that.
Yes.
Uh, but it was definitely, again, it was the closest to the VR I felt, even without the headset. You were
Hmm.
controlling your raft as you and Marshall, Will, and Holly avoided the dinosaurs. And
I had a gripe with this attraction though, because
oh,
kind of the whole point of the Jungle Cruise is to just laugh at your skipper. And then you do this virtual Jungle Cruise and there's no skipper and then there's dinosaurs and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. But then you're like, wait, I could just go to Universal and do Jurassic Park and have way cooler dinosaurs and I don't have to row the whole time. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It seems like they really missed out on that one. It seems like a big missed opportunity to me.
yeah. And this right here is every single time could never finish the course.
Mm-hmm.
And but my favorite thing about the virtual Jungle Cruise is how you had to get onto the boats, because you had to sit and then rotate in, and then you would slide on the seat, and then the air cushion would pop up at the bottom, and that would cause the movements. And
Yeah.
trying to get out of it was much like trying to get out of a giant bean bag. You almost felt like you were a turtle on your back having to flip out of it.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a fun attraction. And again, it was one of those, this is an entertaining thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Cole, I know that you have information on the Pirates of the Caribbean battle for the Buccaneer Gold, because I know that that attraction replaced something else. So go for it.
Well, I am not as familiar with the one that it replaced, to be honest,
Yeah.
because that was well before I ever went there. Um, but Pirates itself, I thought was very challenging because trying to use the little, so you had your guns that you would shoot things with, like as you're riding along in your pirate ship, and those things were not very accurate. It was very difficult to try and like commandeer another ship. You were just trying your darndest to just like, I don't know, become Jack Sparrow, even though it's based off the ride, really, not really
Yeah.
based off the film. But like you're there trying to steal another ship and you're trying to row and it's just not working as well. You tried your best, but it was very hard to succeed.
No, and it definitely was. But before this, it was a Hercules attraction,
Hmm.
which for the life of me, I cannot remember anything about. I know it was you. We were battling Zeus or the
Hmm.
gods, um, but that was, again, just like most things with Disney Quest. Not a lot was written about it. I mean, even if you look
Hmm.
at the Wikipedia page, which usually has so much information about things
Yeah.
that are completely pointless, it's half a
Yeah.
page.
Hmm.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. I knew she would know because I know that they'd been there. Hercules in the Underworld. And if I
Hmm.
remember correctly, you were throwing lightning bolts to try to get to Hades and defeat them. Um, but,
That sounds way
Hercules,
cooler. I'm gonna be
it,
honest. That sounds a lot cooler, especially because Hercules doesn't get the love in the parks that it should. Very disappointing.
yeah, no, it was, but you have to also think that Hercules at that time wasn't the biggest
Hmm.
property. It's now more. Okay, Hercules in the Underworld. 6 guests would each control their own character from Disney's Hercules with a joystick. The object of the game was to collect lightning bolts and defeat Hades. So there we go.
Still, though, it only got 2 years there, but
Yeah,
then they replaced it with Pirates of the Caribbean, which at that point was a 30-year-old attraction that hadn't had anything done to it in a while. Like that still seems like an odd move to me because the movies were 2000. barely even a speck of dust in the eye, you know?
Yeah. But you have one thing looking at this, these cannons came into play sometime later in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we talked about this on Dig a Little Deeper not too long ago. This was the first test of the plunger technology that ended up being the main system for Toy Story Mania, Toy Story Midway
Mm-hmm.
Mania. And it was a fun attraction. I felt like this attraction, you got further. And again, this does
Yeah.
definitely fall into the VR category more than the other ones because you had the 3D
Mm-hmm.
headsets and you had the interactive. Plus, there was the movement of the ship, which I loved that there was an e-stop button on the back, and cast
Yeah.
members would have to like, okay, is everybody good to go? Is everybody? It's like just I did it once by myself, and I was shooting all 6 cannons
Oh
throughout it.
my goodness. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was definitely easier than the Jungle Cruise was, though. It was
Yes.
definitely, I would say, of the main games, like the main attractions, this might have been this or like Alien, which we'll get to later, might have been the two like easiest or most simple to play.
Yeah, and it was fun for the entire family. Aw.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh.
but I do want to point out one other thing about level 1. This giant open space right here. Do
What
you
could
know
have
what
been
you
there?
So when I went in 98, I remember playing a game where you drove a truck around and you had a camera and you were looking through the camera and steering it, but you had to have somebody standing over the trucks to tell you which way to go. Not
Mm-hmm.
the easiest game at all. And it was the Treasure of the
The
Incas.
Incas. Yeah.
Yes. Players drive small remote control trucks through a maze in search of treasure. Along the wall, there were stations with steering wheels and a video screen by which the driver to drive the truck. The floor of the room was clear plastic through which friends could see the trucks driving around so they could shout directions to their drivers. All I remember is everybody yelling, "Go left, go left." And when you had a whole floor of everybody just yelling "Go left,"
Yeah.
it's not like you knew. Oh, you could tell your friends who they were and who was yelling something else.
I mean, there's actually a game I used to play. It's called Tanks, where it's very similar, where
Hmm.
your partner is blindfolded and you have to like throw little projectiles at other people. So it seems like the same concept, but that works well in a nice outdoor space when you have a lot of things going on. I don't think it works as well in an indoor space where there's other people trying to accomplish things. Doesn't seem like it's necessarily the most conducive environment.
So this, as the story goes, and I can confirm part of this, but the entire floor was plexiglass, and it was a giant plexiglass on top of this maze.
They were
Um,
prepared.
yeah, they were definitely prepared for what happened, and this is confirmed that one of the trucks caught fire. So it's it's the little truck. I'm sure it burnt out in no time, but it caused damage to the area. And instead of being able to just go in and pull out the one truck and replace that area, it was pretty much abandoned and they just put carpet
Mm-hmm.
over the floor. And I can remember going back later and feeling the bouncy of it and hearing that the trucks were actually all still down there because in order to pull them all out, they would have had to lift everything.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it was, you know, again, lots of great concepts, but not
Yeah.
the best follow through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was definitely, I loved level 1. That was one of
Yeah.
those that I would always rush to because there was so much fun down there.
Mm-hmm. So
But
much adventure.
um, but as we were talking about the inside of the building, let's take a look at the outside of the building, which was just a beautiful design, very simple, changed colors a few
Mhm.
times over the years, but there it is.
Look at
And
that.
this was 98 when the expansion of West Side of Downtown Disney happened, when La Nuva, the AMC expanded to the other side, the Virgin Megastore was right there, or I'm sorry, Tower Records and the House of Blues. And I can remember when I visited from 98 to probably the early 2000s, the hype around this area because they could never get guests to go down that way.
Yeah.
Like on all the videos, they'd had the guy in the playing the saxophone that would be right next to the House of Blues in the Mickey spotlight. And it was, they didn't have a huge draw, which...
I mean, looking at it, it makes sense because you have Cirque du Soleil, Disney Quest, and the movie theater. And all of those are things that take a lot of time to experience. It's not like you can quickly go in and out. So when you have all of them right near each other, seems like a pretty bad recipe for crowd planning because you're not actually able to funnel people to like quick restaurants or stores to go in,
Yeah, it was definitely one of those. They had a great concept, but again, it didn't follow through that well.
Yes.
Okay, so we were talking about the misspelling of Aladdin and the cheapness that it looked like. I'm preparing you for this.
I'm ready.
Yes, that's white out over those. Yeah, okay. So let's start with level 4, which was the Ride the Comics. Oh no, I'm sorry. Level 4 was... I'm not even sure which one level 4 was anymore.
It's the NBA experience.
Yes. But at the end, level 4 was the kids area, Wonderland Cafe, which was one of my favorite themed areas because it was themed after Wonderland and you ate on a mushroom. And I can remember going there in probably 2000 and they actually had laptops that you could use. You could spin around and you pay $5 for internet access, which at the time was great because I could check emails when I was on vacation at the Wonderland Cafe. That was originally Cheesecake Factory ran the Wonderland Cafe.
Wow.
The sports area, which again was just video games. E, which you can't see, which was the closest to, I want to say, a Star Wars type attraction. And that was, I'm trying to find the name of it.
Was that Ride the Comics or was that upstairs? That was upstairs.
Ride the Comics was upstairs. Actually, this was the second level of Ride the Comics.
Yeah, weren't there two? Yeah, I was going to say, I thought there were 2 levels.
Yeah, that's right. And that had some really fun adventures, but you were also standing over people walking underneath you, and you would be battling with your little laser sword as things flew past you. But yeah, this area towards the end kind of just fell into, kids area. It had little kids games like the Hungry Hippos and those where you could, at one point you could get tickets, but 2015 they removed all the redemption games because of the whole is it gambling situation that happened here in Florida. So we don't have a lot to talk about level 4.
Yeah, level 4 was kind of lame. I'm gonna be honest. That was not very exciting.
Level 5, Food Quest, an amazing eatery. Again, the things that were great, the Wonderland Cafe and Food Quest when they first opened, lots of options. As with, and I hate to say this, as with most Disney eateries, as the time goes on, they just kind of dumb down the food until there's this renaissance and they want to bring back these different options. But I remember the last time I went into Food Quest, they had popcorn. Everything else was gone. They didn't. Oh no, I'm sorry. They did have the wraps, but they were like the pre-made wraps that you could get at the hotel restaurants. Ride the Comics.
Because they knew no one was there long enough. They're like,
Yes.
no one's gonna be here long enough to actually want to eat in this place. We know they'll be here for 2 hours, get everything done, and get out.
Yeah. I mean, again, that was whiteout put on the B, and somebody scraped it over when I was there. Did you get a chance to do the Ride the Comics?
I think I did, but that's the one I remembered the least, actually. I don't remember it that much.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Here's the definition: Ride the Comics. Players wear a headset and they enter the comic world. Players battle the supervillains using laser swords. Up to six players can be on a team, and that would be six players in each of the spaceships. As early as 2011, Ride the Comics 4 had been overtaken by villains, which means it stopped working.
Then it got its first whiteout.
Yes. On September 7th, 2014, Ride the Comics was closed to allow for additional seating for Food Quest. So, you know, the the attraction or the entire building closed July 2nd, 2017. So for almost 3 years, they had this entire attraction that people just would sit to eat at.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was sad because they had some amazing things in there, but sadly, none of them were used to after the first few years.
No, it's weird. Why did they keep that makes
This
sense.
this says a lot.
Why did so many of the attractions have 6 people? Right? Like very few attractions are normally created for 6 people. It's a pretty
Mhm.
rare occurrence. So it's kind of interesting that just everywhere with 6 people attractions.
Yeah, it was just. I think one of the things, and it's funny. I was watching for some reason, the 2004 Christmas Day parade, and they were talking about magical gatherings. Which I don't know if you, because you were a West Coaster, magical
Mm-hmm.
gatherings was Disney encouraging like family reunions or large family
Mm.
gatherings. So I'm guessing that this was definitely designed for a group of teenagers to, hey, let's go be cool and go to Disney
Yeah,
Quest and ride the comics.
as long as there's 6 of us.
Yes. But the nice thing about, well, Ride the Comics was easy to get other people when you're doing like
Mm-hmm.
pirates. And
Yeah,
even I think Jungle Cruise had 4 players.
yeah,
So if you were there with one other person, it wasn't the easiest to do.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
But again, one of the interesting things about this is 1998, when this opened, we were a couple of years into the new Tomorrowland in Magic Kingdom, where, of course, Alien Encounter had opened. And for some unknown reason, they decided to create an attraction based on Alien Encounter
Yeah, they
for
did.
Disney Quest, Alien Encounter Invasion.
Oh
Which,
yeah.
how much of this do you remember?
I remember this a lot. This was my favorite one. I really liked this one because I always wanted to do extraterrestrial alien encounter, and I never got to do it,
Hmm.
and it was really sad because the only time I went when it was open, I was like 5 years old, and my parents were like, "No, you don't even keep your eyes open on Indiana Jones. You're not going to survive this ride." And I was like, "That's probably pretty fair, like this." Okay, but then this was the closest I ever got to experiencing it because I don't count Stitch's Great Escape because that shouldn't count.
Yes.
And I just really liked it. It thought it was so much fun to kind of like try to go save your people. It actually reminds me a lot of the like Mars mission thing that they have after Mission Space,
Hmm.
where you rescue
Yeah.
the astronauts. It feels very similar to this,
Yeah.
except you're
It
shooting
was.
things.
Yeah. And well, one of my favorite things is Invasion, an extraterrestrial alien encounter, and they tried their hardest to tie it together. This one though only had 4 players, You ride
Yes.
inside a rescue vehicle to save astronauts. One player drives, and the other three shoot the enemy aliens. You know how much it sucked to be the person that was like, you had to drive.
Oh, it was
Because
the worst.
yeah, you're just driving as you're going, and everybody else is shooting and having all the fun. And they're like, go, back up, pick up the alien. Yeah.
It's like being the
Rebecca,
engineer.
yes. The signage intimidated me. But they did actually have a tie to the alien encounter attraction, because in the pre-show you would get notifications on what was going from Chairman Clinch.
Oh,
And
there he is.
yeah, LC Clinch, chairman of Excess Tech, because if it can't be done, if it can be done, it should be done with excess. And it was very random. I mean, I'm pretty sure I have the video of this. I need to go into my archives and start putting this stuff back up online. But it was, I don't even want to call it a tie-in, because I can remember they had this video, and then they had models of the vehicles you were in and the aliens, and none of it was from Alien Encounter. There was nothing that tied in with it. So it was, it was a fun game, but again, you just sat down, you interacted with it for 10 minutes, not even probably 5 minutes, and then you were out and you'd run back around, because often there would be nobody there.
I do remember with this getting overwhelmed by the aliens at one point and just being like, oh my goodness, there are so many of them, and trying to shoot everything. I have a pretty distinct memory of that for some reason.
Yeah, because it was overloading yourself, and they would just attack at nonstop.
You would just go,
yeah, and I don't want to say that that's accurate, but yeah, that's accurate. So one of the things towards the end that was listed on multiple levels was the classic arcade games. And I'm not going to lie, I went there for 2 reasons, and 2 reasons alone. Tron and Discs of Tron. If I could sit there and play those games for free all day long, I'm not going to say that there may have been a few hours that I sat there going back and forth between the two, but I definitely did. But in the early days, they had the great video games. They had the new stuff. They had everything that was still coming out as this is brand new things in 1998. The great motorcycle games where you leaned and you would turn.
I know those.
But yeah, I mean, sadly, towards the end, I would go in there and one of these would be broken. The pinball machines would be broken. But as Rebecca said, what was hoping to be the saving grace of Disney Quest was Wreck-It Ralph. And I don't know how you felt, but when you saw Wreck-It Ralph, you kind of felt that if Disney Quest could start to revamp itself like that, it's all that's needed. And I can remember, because I was here when Wreck-It Ralph came out, they put in one of the statues, and they had many of the games that they used in both Disneyland and Disney World, and they put them in to encourage kids to play a game that was created for a movie. And again, I don't think a lot of people knew that it wasn't a real video game before, but they would still play it. And Fix-It Felix would try to save blah blah blah. I haven't watched Wreck-It Ralph.
Blah blah blah. From
blah blah blah. Yes. But sadly, this is what became of this grand experiment of a virtual theme park with rides and attractions and shows. It became an arcade with a couple of attractions and things that were whited out.
And I mean, the attractions almost became games in and of themselves more than attractions as well.
Yeah, I mean, so in 1998, this opened.
Yes.
And then in 2017, it closed. And I took this photo today of the current area just so we could see how busy it is. And there's the NBA experience. Yeah,
Sounds about right. It looks good. It looks good to me.
Sadly, in 2017, this attraction closed and sat dormant for, I want to say, 2 years. And then they built the NBA experience, which was kind of a virtual venture into being an NBA player that was open for less than a year, then shut down due to the current situation of the world and has not reopened.
I would actually say that a much better NBA experience happened there from about August to October.
Yeah.
The real NBA experience.
Yeah. I will say this space right here, what is currently occupied that is definitely a highlight of the West Side, and that's CityWorks restaurant, which has some great food. And also, if you drink, it has quite a few different beer options. So if you've not ventured down to CityWorks while you're here, it's a good place to visit. Lots of food. You know, I will say it has one of my all-time favorite desserts. They have a peanut butter cake, a peanut butter and chocolate cake that's made in-house. Really, yeah, so it's all really amazing down there. So now that we've kind of covered the Disney version, this is where Cole's part comes into play.
Oh yeah. Should we go to the South Side? Grab some deep dish pizza? And go to Disney Quest Chicago. There it is. Opening June 16th, 1999. So I know yes. I'm definitely going to have that next time I'm there, probably along with a little brewski. It sounds pretty good. I'm excited now for when I'm there in October. But anyway, Disney Quest Chicago. They wanted to kind of build off the idea, like we were talking about earlier, the Club Disney idea of kind of making just this chain of interactive parks that you could visit in a bunch of different places. I believe that they said there was plans at one point for up to 30 of them, which is nuts when you think about it. That is a lot of Disney Quest.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that, and go on, I'll jump in when it comes time because I know where you're going to hit, and then I have a story for that.
Yes, so they built this one in Chicago, and it actually was built, which was pretty exciting. As you could see, it was just kind of built into a city block. You know, it kind of feels like, I don't know, it feels like Times Square, how you just stumble onto like the world's largest Disney store in the middle of Times Square. It's kind of like, oh, look, there's this Disney Quest here, and it was built near the ESPN zone that had just opened there as well. And they said, you know, maybe this could be our big success. It was, I believe, slightly smaller than the one in Florida, but still a pretty good size. You still had most of the attractions that were there. And of course, it failed.
Yeah.
Because there was not really a market for this type of experience. A lot of these people already traveled down to the Disney parks. I know, I like to say, when I was in college, I went to school in Pennsylvania, and pretty much everyone that I knew had been to two places in their life on vacation: Myrtle Beach and Disney World. Those are the only two places that anyone had ever gone to. So like, it makes sense. A lot of these people are traveling down. But then there was two also that got into more finalized planning stages. One in Toronto got pretty far, but I don't believe they started construction. But then there was the one in Philadelphia, which I think is what Jeremiah was hinting at.
Oh, no, I have another story.
Oh, you have another one. So then in Philadelphia, they were going to build one in like their Market Square area, and they actually cleared all the land for it and everything. And then as this project in Chicago failed, it ended up just not coming to fruition, and there is currently a parking lot there today.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, really became something amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I never got a chance to go to the other Disney Quest. I think I know two people that did, and at some point I need to get them to go in their archives and pull up some maps because I don't even think when I was searching for anything, I couldn't find any real information about the Disney Quest out there. Uh,
Yeah.
but my input on the proposed Disney Quest were, so how well do you know Downtown Disney in Anaheim, Cole?
Kind of. I know where most everything is.
So there's um, a, and I can't think of the name of it. The Mexican restaurant,
There's Tortilla Joe's.
Tortilla Joe's, and then right across from it is Splitsville.
Yeah.
Well, currently Splitsville. It was at one time the House of Blues.
Mm-hmm.
But there was also this giant space in between the two that had a
Yeah.
footprint designed for it, and that was actually going to be the home of Disney Quest for Downtown Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they built it, that was one of the designs, and then of course it had failed in Chicago. By the time this is one of those things that you think about it, and it opened in Chicago June 16th, 1999. Things that opened in 1999 or before, if there was a main reason why it failed within the next few years, it was mostly because the tourism traffic was devastated after 9/11. Do you know what day Disney Quest closed in Chicago?
September 4th, 2001.
Yes. So before the tragedies of 9/11 could hit, they'd already given up on this. So
I mean,
just
there was
imagine.
a recession as well in 2000.
Yeah.
So that definitely also played a role in it.
Yep. And see, Rebecca needs to be on this and show us some of
I
her
know.
old planning
She's
diagrams.
got all the information here. It's been very impressive.
If only she created a website for us all to go off. Anyway, okay, so we've now ventured into the first virtual theme park that Disney flat out declared a failure. They closed everything. They've leveled they've leveled the version here. I'm not sure what now takes up the place in Chicago. Actually, I think I just read that.
Yeah, I can't think of it offhand.
Yeah, and nope, it was incorrect. I didn't have that information. But it's funny how we are now in the time in our world where Oculus or the PS5, the PlayStation, or the Xbox all have headsets and our virtual reality are the next step. But Disney, I would say, was well ahead of the curve in 1998 when they tried to do Disney Quest.
Yeah.
So I still think to this day, if they had just continued to put money into the building, at least here at Disney Springs, it could have succeeded.
Yeah, but that's a big if.
Yeah. I mean, they had definitely given up on it in the last few years. I can remember hearing people say, and this was cast members, that really the only reason it's there is for rainy days, because on a regular day I could go in there and maybe see 20 other people, and you had to have at least 10 cast members in there running it. So it was not making the money that they had hoped. But on rainy days they would actually close it to capacity because everybody at Downtown Disney at that time would rush in and just move in and start playing the video games all day.
Yeah, I think if there's any kind of future for a Disney Quest type experience, it would almost be like an app that you could download, and it would just have like VR videos of attractions that exist in the world today.
Well,
I think that's kind of the future we would get to.
Yeah, I mean, and Josh D'Amore was just talking a few
Mhm.
weeks ago about the future, and it'd be more home-based type
Yeah.
attractions. So, they're coming full circle.
I
The
mean,
virtual
we already
reality.
have a Toy Story Mania home attraction.
Yes. Yeah.
The
So
oft forgotten.
who knows if possibly Disney Quest could be called some future form of home entertainment, which would be
Mhm.
just classic to see that be brought back.
Yeah.
We didn't even go into the shop that was at the exit on level one, that in the early days, Disney Quest had its own merchandise, from logo t-shirts to action figures to everything. But I can remember, especially like in the last few years of it, I knew that if I wanted to find a limited edition item, I would walk all the way down to the Disney Quest
Yeah.
shop, because they turned it into just an the West Side world of Disney, and they would
Mhm.
have anything that you couldn't find in the other shops.
Yeah. Which was
So
great. Yeah.
yeah. Well, gang, we hope that you enjoyed our almost hour and 15-minute venture into Disney Quest. We are going to get on that giant slide that they killed the first year, you could get on and slide all the way down to level one, and then it just disappeared. And later on, they put stairs in there that were far too tight.
Lame.
We hope you guys enjoyed this. Please leave any comments you like for anything future that you may want us to address. Disney, non-Disney, anything we can look into, we will. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, share with your friends who are nerds like us that Cole and I spend far too much time talking about something that closed years ago. Anything else, Cole?
Yep. That's all.
Thank you, gang. Please have a great night. Be safe, and hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. And now I press the
Bye-bye.
end broadcast.